The following is a presentation of the Mat Talk Podcast Network. It's time for Inside Virginia Tech Wrestling. We'll talk all things Hokie wrestling with Coach Tony Roby and staff. Now, let's join your host, Hall of Fame wrestling writer and broadcaster, Jason Bryant.
Episode 85 of Inside Virginia Tech Wrestling. It is the summertime. It's warm. School's out for a lot of places on the high school and elementary and middle school world. As parents, we know that. School's been out for a bit in Blacksburg. And while school's been out, we've got a new addition to the Hokie wrestling program. His name is Cody Brewer, who was a four-time All-American at the University of Oklahoma there in Norman. Cody, welcome to one, the Inside Virginia Tech Wrestling podcast, and two, the Hokie wrestling family.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be on.
A little meet and greet here for Hokie Nation. So give a little backstory here. You're from the Kansas City, Missouri metro area, Kansas City proper, Oak Park High School, good wrestling tradition there. So just talk a little bit about coming from wrestling in Kansas City. It's a good market for wrestling. You know, there's two power sections of the state, but what did it mean for you to come from a program like Oak Park in that part of the state?
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. I had a really good kids club going through, and then it developed into the high school team as well. I remember my freshman year we were ranked third in the country starting out the year, so it was big right away for me stepping into a varsity lineup and being third in the country as a team. So, you know, you got to kind of, the learning curve is got to come quick when you're wrestling high level competition like that. But yeah, our high school did a really good job of producing kids, and a lot of them at some point went Division One. One of the previous guys that was there, Zach Bailey, went to Oklahoma, was a two-time All-American as well from my high school, and other guys have gone different places and had success out as well. So when you get that kind of production out of a high school program is really good. It sets it up for the college level as well.
And usually a situation like that, there's a solid youth effort. I mean, you've been on the freestyle scene since you were a kid. And what is it about the sport of wrestling that drew you in initially?
I think just the fact that it was just me. You know, you just get to compete. I played a lot of different sports, did a lot of different things, but it was just me out there, and kind of the best of both worlds. You know, you lose a match, it's 100% on you. You win a match, it's 100% on you as well. So kind of one of those things that you probably take for granted, you know, in some of the team sports that, you know, obviously wrestling is still a team sport, but very individualized. And I think that's what I liked about it, is just being out there alone. You know, there's no one else to blame but me. So
when it comes time to, you know, you go through high school, four-time state champ, you had an older brother that was pretty solid. You placed 5 times in Fargo, winning 2 titles. You doubled in cadets back in 2008. Before we even get there, do you remember who you beat in the finals at each of those styles in 2008?
First one was from Utah in Greco. I remember that. I can't remember his name. I couldn't tell you. I remember wrestling one of the Nordstrom brothers in Greco that year. It was really tough, and he just had won, I think, a different freestyle, pretty big competition. I don't know if it was FILA cadets or what it was, but he had won that previously before Fargo. I remember wrestling him in the semis or quarters, I would say, back when they had line brackets, a little different. But and then the freestyle was New Jersey guy, I believe, but can't remember names as well, I should say.
Well, you're right on the states. It was Jacob Falk, who I really don't remember after that, the Greco kid from Utah, and then Rob Deutsch from New Jersey, who was a multiple-time in-state qualifier for Old Dominion and then later Ryder. So you got the states right. So I realized that was 11 years ago. And, you know, time flies when you're having fun. But in terms of moving to the next level, your older brother had success at the high school level. And what were the plans for you coming out of Oak Park to wrestle at the Division I level?
Yeah, just I kind of had choice against a couple of different schools. Wasn't I would say a pretty sought after recruit. I wasn't number one in the nation at my weight. I know I was probably ranked at sometimes, but not top 5, I don't think. So more than anything, it was just to get out there and to prove it a little bit and prove myself that, you know, I could be on the Division I level and have success. My brother wrestled a little bit in Division I. kind of had given me the background of not necessarily how it goes, but just kind of the experience of him being there and kind of telling me, this may happen. There's guys that might leave. There's guys that'll come in. It's just how Division I wrestling is. And so it ended up being Oklahoma that was the ending choice for me. And then, I just kind of took it and ran with it after that. I had a lot of good coaches there, but it was the best choice for me. Had a couple other good schools that I was interested in, but nothing beat Oklahoma for me at the time.
How much did Zach Bailey's presence there play a role in that?
It did. I would say it made a factor. Not a huge factor. I knew that I wanted to go there for probably just myself, and it was the best fit for me. But obviously watching him in high school and then watching him get on the podium twice in college made a huge difference. Of he had the success there. I could do the same as well. So.
You talked about the high school rankings. You'd been on the radar for a lot of people in that era, but I think one of the big breakout moments came in Cleveland, the FILA Juniors, when the U.S. Open and FILA Junior Championships kind of run concurrently, and you beat Logan Stieber, who the year before had made headlines being a high school kid that was like in the U.S. Open semis, having the battle with Angel Escobedo and some of the top-level senior athletes. And beating Stieber really kind of put you on the map to a lot of people. What did you remember about that situation in that freestyle match in that old public hall in Cleveland?
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. I remember me and Logan were around the same couple years apart, but same age. And I remember just kind of like, this guy's an animal, and he's a different breed. And I just remember him being, a couple years older than me, had that like a little bit more of experience. But yeah, I just remember being in the quarters. My brother was coaching me. I don't remember the exact score, but I knew it was pretty close. But I started out with an early lead and was able to keep it throughout. And I know Logan's got really good offense, so did a good job defensively in that match and getting a win. But a huge win for me. I hadn't wrestled high competition like that. College kids, that was all new, coming to high school a little bit, and kind of just put me, like you said, put me on the map a little bit and gave me a little more confidence that I can wrestle with the best guys in the country, at the time. So.
As history goes forward, that win gets a lot better as the years go on, doesn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. When you got a guy that's a 4-time national champ, but he beat me one of those years in college too, so he got back what I gave him in high school. So.
Well, there's also he's got a world championship as well.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
As we move forward, we look at your college career, and you wrestled for Mark Cody at Oklahoma. What was it about Mark Cody that made you want to wrestle for him?
Yeah, it actually switched. Jack was leaving. I knew he was leaving, and they originally kind of told me they didn't know where they were going to go with the head coaching job, and didn't know. And then after FILA Juniors, actually, I got a call that Coach Cody was going to be the head coach. And, I kind of relationship grew from there. He did a really good job getting me prepared for matches and for tournaments, and he knew, and he's been around for a long time, knew the sport, knew Division I wrestling really well, obviously, and helped me quite a bit. He was, when we started together as well, I think was a big thing. I was kind of his first, he didn't really recruit me, but I was with him from the beginning, and it just kind of took off from there. I introduced myself to him, and he was like, I know who you are, kind of like, we'll see how you do. And then I think I just kept proving myself more and more, in the room to gain his trust that I was going to go out there and try to compete at a high level. And I think he appreciated that when I was there. And Coach Cody's one of those guys I said that it gets you really prepared for matches and makes you feel confident before every match. And I think he did a good job with me, making me feel confident in my abilities that I could beat a lot of people. So.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Is of course I was curious about the timeline. So obviously you said you didn't go choose to wrestle for him, but it's interesting as you kind of bookended the situation. You came in, and he was new there, and then it was shortly there afterwards that he was out, and Lou Roselli ended up taking over the reins. What's your thoughts on what Lou's doing with the program at Oklahoma now?
Yeah, I think he's doing well. I think he was the right guy for the job. Lou actually helped me out a little bit on the freestyle circuit, and I've come up there to train a couple times, and really good guy and really knowledgeable in the wrestling room. I mean, it's a lot of people I've been around, and he's pretty knowledgeable inside the room, where he's at his best, I think, showing technique, doing what he loves. And yeah, he's turning that program around in the best kinds of way. The kids that they have there are good kids, young kids that are ready to compete at a high level as well.
When it comes to your performance, you go 4-time All-American, 7-8-1-3. That year you won it. You had one loss going into the tournament, yet you were a 13 seed, and to this day, the only number 13 seed to ever win an NCAA title. Did you go in with a chip on your shoulder? Because it certainly looked like you wrestled like it.
Yeah, I think so. I think, you feel a little disrespected, and that, it's kind of funny. The guy that I had lost to got seeded 6th, and I had beat him a week and a half before that pretty handily, from what I remember. But it was, kind of a shock to you at first, and then you just realize that you got to put 5 together to win it. And I knew just that year was the right thing, fell into place for me, and I knew I could win it. I always had that dream as a kid, obviously, that you want to win an NCAA title. But yeah, it went by really quick, and I just kind of got through it, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm in the NCAA finals. And then from then on that, I knew I wasn't going to lose in the finals once I got there. So, but it's just, it's kind of crazy, a whirlwind of emotions going through that whole tournament, trying to, get up for matches, you're down, up for matches, it's kind of it's a little bit tournament. It's an interesting tournament. And, I wrestled really well, put up a lot of points, which is kind of what I base my career on, is scoring a lot. So
where is the level of disappointment that comes in when you're a returning champion? Everybody's gunning for you, and ultimately you don't make it back even to the platform for the finals on Saturday night.
Yeah, it's tough. I see it too, and anybody that says that, winning it once is hard, winning it twice is just as hard. Everybody knows who you are then. Everybody studied film, everybody's done this, and, it goes either way. But, I just remember, like, the Vegas tournament was kind of eye-opening for me, because that was kind of the true test I had that first year, or that for being back after the title. And a lot of good guys, I remember guys were punching me, and grabbing my fingers and just doing, probably not real wrestling things, I should say, being kind of dirty. And I just was realizing that right then and there, that's how it's going to be for the rest of the year. You're going to get everybody's best every time. Things are going to happen that always don't go your way. And I think that was tougher for me at the NCAA tournament, kind of feeling that from possibly people, and just not being prepared. I think the year prior I was prepared to go through 5 wars, and that year I wasn't. I kind of got caught in a position that I shouldn't have been in, and against a good wrestler, that's what happens, and mistakes happen. But I came back and took 3rd, which I was happy about. Not a lot of guys can do that especially after not wanting to probably wrestle after the semis like I did, and just knowing that people were watching still, and that I had to come back and take 3rd. So.
College career is over. How soon do you make the decision that you want to get into college coaching?
I kind of knew probably my senior year a little bit that I was going to get into some type of coaching, whether it was high school or college. I spent a lot of time with Mike Leitner and Coach Cody and the coaches that we had, just kind of seeing an overview of what they do day to day, and knowing that I was going to get into some form of coaching. And then it kind of led to my job at Northwestern.
Yeah, how hard was it to leave Northwestern? It seemed like the Chicago RTC was rolling. You got a young, energetic staff, Andrew Howe, yourself, Jimmy Kennedy, Matt Storniolo. I mean, it seemed like there were a lot of pieces there that were, fitting together and starting to crank things up, even though the limitations that Northwestern has with its, almost like a roster limit, plus the expense of it being the only private Big Ten institution. I mean, what was it like in Evanston and to be part of that coaching staff?
Yeah, it was great. Matt gave me an opportunity out of college. I know, remember Andrew Howe gave me a call. I gave him a call. We talked a little bit, and I was like, I think this could be good. The volunteer role, I wanted to still compete at the time. And then the coaching aspect, I really wanted to get into coaching, kind of dive right in. They gave me an opportunity, and it was good. It's obviously really tough to leave. Leaving a 2-time All-American that I've been coaching, that's a hammer, and that, is going to be going to finish out 2 more years and going to do really well. And a lot of those kids I've had built relationships with just as well as the coaches. You know, you build those relationships with people, and then you take it a different way. So
a lot of situations college coaches learn from an elder statesman or somebody that's been in college coaching for a long time. You look at that Northwestern staff, there wasn't really an elder statesman in terms of, I mean, I'm older than Storniolo, so there really wasn't a real veteran to learn from. What was it like as you guys kind of grew together as coaches?
Yeah, it was good. We actually did pretty well as far as a staff of making decisions and making them all on the same page. And I think that's what I will probably remember most, is just being on the same page on a lot of stuff. You know, there was times situations would come up, things would come up in college coaching. It happens every year with guys or what we're doing, and we all did a pretty good job of coming together and figuring out. And I will probably say this: Andrew Howe is probably one of the best the best coaches to be around, but probably one of the best human beings to be around. Complete animal on the mat, but maybe the nicest guy that I've ever met outside of the mat. And I think that's saying something for our sport, because you get a guy that competes like that and then is a super nice guy off the mat, very personable, and does everything he can for the athletes. And I learned a lot from him, just kind of from afar watching and doing that. And I try to kind of mimic some of the things he does, because I think he has a lot of success with what he does.
Now, when it comes time to go to Virginia Tech, you're in the midst of training for the U.S. Open, which you ultimately won, and there's an opening at Tech. Devin Carter had filled in an interim role, Dr. Devin Carter, as we now know him.
Yeah.
And, explain, how you end up going from one of the up-and-coming young staffs in NCAA wrestling to one of the more diverse up-and-coming staffs in the ACC with Virginia Tech.
Yeah, so after NCAA's, Tony had called me on, I think, that Wednesday or Thursday. I was actually driving back to Kansas City at the time just to visit some family after NCAA's. And just kind of, we talked a little bit. He asked me if I'd be interested in, and honestly, I didn't even think anything about it at first, other than the fact that, I was a little interested, but I totally forgot that they didn't have somebody on staff in that position, because they had done such a good job. Tony and Jared and Ty did such a good job, and Devin hopping in there to help out. And they did a really good job. I guess I just didn't really notice that they had an opening. And then we talked more about it, and I went down to train in Oklahoma for a little bit to get ready for the Open, and ultimately I took the job. Probably then I was just talked to my fiance about it and kind of had a, develop, talk, and we were discussing it more and more, and we became more and more interested, and I came more and more interested of just what's going on in the buzz around Virginia Tech wrestling. And so it was definitely an easy opportunity once I started to think about it more and more. But yeah, it kind of developed from there. I went down to see it, took the job, and then after that got back to training. But yeah, I was super excited to take it, and super excited that they even offered it to me. There's a lot of people they could have offered it to, and they offered it to me. And like I said, I saw a great opportunity, so I jumped on it.
When it comes time to make a move like that, Chicago to Blacksburg, that's. I mean, how does a fiance take that discussion?
She was actually really good. She was probably more excited than I was, but she likes Chicago, likes the city, has a pretty good job. She's a nurse. But she knew that Chicago wasn't our end point. We weren't going to be there for long term. And Matt knew that as well. And a lot of the coaches in Northwestern knew that Chicago wasn't my end point. And so we just kind of discussed it more and more. And she was like, if you're wanting it, let's do it. And she was really supportive about it all, and made it super easy for me to make a decision, for us to make a decision, I should say, when she said, do whatever you want. And I was like, we're moving. So she hopped on board and was great about it. She's excited to take the next step for her as well, whatever she may land job-wise as well. So,
what did you know about Blacksburg before the interview process?
I remember wrestling there at Oklahoma. We went to Virginia Tech to wrestle. I think that we did like a home and away through college, and that's kind of all I knew. Really just being there on the campus. So that I liked it when I was there. I didn't get to see a whole lot of it. But yeah, I kind of knew that, I mean, obviously first national champ happens this last year with Mekhi Lewis and things like that. Joey Dance was actually up with us for a year training at the RTC, and he was a Hokie as well, and he talked about it and loved it. Would always talk about it and the guys in the area, and so he explained to me a little bit too, in depth, I should say, that it was a really good place to be, and he really enjoyed it. It was tough for him to leave. So, but yeah, I didn't know too much, but wanted to get to know more, and then once I got down for the interview and kind of the process of seeing things, I loved it. It was kind of what I was used to at Oklahoma a little bit, same kind of area type. Love the facilities, the people. And I've known Jared for a while. He was my coach at Oklahoma for 2 years too, as well. So we had that little bit of connection, and then getting to know Tony more and more has been really good.
Have you ever asked Joey Dance what's with that foot thing he does?
I don't know. Joey does his own style that I could not teach or show or do anything to even ask. He's his own unique guy. He's got one of a kind style, I would say. Only he can do it. So.
Now I just have to ask, so the natural Joey Dance segue is, are you a cat person like he is?
No, I'm not. I don't like cats at all. I'm a big dog person. I like dogs, but not cats. So.
One thing that I've always wondered, and this goes back, I guess ever since you it first adorned your shoulder. What's the story behind the Punisher tattoo?
So kind of got it from the movie a little bit, and kind of just a cartoon. I read a couple comic books, really enjoyed it as a kid a little bit, and knew that I would probably get it one day. But my grandma had passed away in high school, and I just thought it would be a thing. Kind of in the comic books, he remembers his family members. That's kind of what he does. Unfortunately, I'm not going to go out and kill anybody for tragically, comic books are a little different, but to remember my grandmother, the date on my arm is the date that the date she passed away, and the skull is for that reason, to kind of remember her and everything that she gave to me. So a little different, but yeah, I've only got that question a couple of times, so that's the reason why behind it, I should say. So.
Then it also kind of jumps into, it's funny, I was in a Twitter discussion this morning with Aaron Golston and Alexis Porter, some of the women's wrestlers, and they're talking about I think Alexis said something about Comic-Con, and I'm like, okay, and then I put a GIF, whatever you want to call it, up there, and she's like, yeah. It's like, we need to do an episode of Short Time with, like, Aaron Golston's into Star Trek geeky stuff, and then, Alexis is into comic books. So it's like all the geeky things. So what is the geekiest thing Cody Brewer is into?
Oh, that's kind of tough. I'm kind of a geek. No, I would say I'm pretty into The Hobbit, and some Star Wars stuff. I would say the geekiest thing. Like I said, the superheroes thing seems to be a little more normal now. If you like superheroes, that's the mainstream now. But I would say the little geeky things would probably be Star Wars and The Hobbit. I was really into that stuff when it's big, I should say. I'm still into it now to this day. So.
Did you ever go to a midnight showing of any Star Wars film?
Oh, I remember going to the showings. I don't know if they were ever midnight showings. I remember they were like a big deal. I remember when the Darth Maul thing was like a huge deal. I remember going to the theater and people were like, I wasn't dressed up or had the costumes or anything, but I remember seeing people.
Kind of what I was getting at. I was curious if there was going to be a reaction, because sometimes when you get Trekkies next to Star Wars people, that's problems. Who knows how they're going to react to the Punisher showing up?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you never know. I play all fields and we're all even, but I wouldn't say obsessed with it, but I do like it a lot. So.
Into what your goals are here on the coaching thing as we get away from geekery, which, I mean, of course, I can I'm not really into the comic book stuff. I'm more into the tech nerdery with podcasts on podcasting crap. But as we as we talk about goals in wrestling, what are your initial goals for the program now that you're here on staff in Blacksburg?
Oh, I think just try to produce more All-Americans and national champs. I think that's the goal. That's why Tony brought me in, was to get these guys to the NCAA tournament and get them on the podium. I think that's, obviously that's every coach's goal, but to grow Virginia Tech wrestling, there were, I could say we now, but we're kind of on the rise in that aspect of recruiting, other things. And I think we're really close with competing with the big schools, the Penn States, the Ohio States, the Iowa, a lot of the Big Ten schools. If you're in the mix with those teams, you're going to get a team title. And I think that's ultimately what they want. Obviously the first national champ is done. That goal is accomplished, and they did that, and that's incredible. Now it's time to get 2 or 3. Now it's time to really to push the boundaries even more, to try to get more out of these guys and try to bring the right kids in to get them on the podium, set them up for, the best parts of their life, I should say. A guy like Mekhi Lewis now has completely changed his life by being a national champ. Whether he would believe it now or 5 years from now, it's completely changed his life. And that's what you want for these kids, is to, they look back on their career and completely change their life for the better. Whether it's wrestling, it's academics, whatever it is for them, you want to change their life. And as a coach, that's all you want, is to better these guys' experience and lives down the road. So they can come back one day and be like, I got 3 kids and I love my life, and a wife that supports me and does everything, and that's awesome. That's what you want. So it's exciting. It's all pretty new to me still for the most part, but I think we got the program going in the right direction of where we're going to compete with the power schools, I should say.
When it comes to advice, and you bring up Mekhi, he's somebody that's going to have a bullseye on him. You won a title as a junior. He won it as a freshman. What type of advice are you going to maybe offer Mekhi that you kind of wish you would have gotten going into your senior year as he approaches his sophomore season?
Yeah. I would say just to enjoy it a little more. I think I dealt with a lot of pressure, being the number one guy coming back. It's a lot of pressure on your shoulders. There's a lot going on. Everybody knows who you are now. A little bit different, but just time to enjoy the moments a little more. Enjoy wrestling, enjoy competing. You're going to get everybody's best, but that's what you want. There will, at the end of the day with Mekhi, that, if he beats somebody, he's still the best, obviously, and still moves forward, but he's got to realize he just got their best. He beat them at their best. Nobody is ever going to give him half 50% of a fight. He's going to get 100% every time. And he should take those moments and enjoy them and say, I just beat you at 100% again, and over again when he beats these guys. And he's a real quiet and real humble kid. And it'll really test what kind of fight he's got this next year. It'll be just as hard, if not tougher, to win it a second time. And I think he probably knows that. And for him to do that and come back and try to do it again is going to be fun to watch. And the Hokie fans are going to be excited to probably watch him again, because he's a very exciting wrestler to watch, just in general. So.
Did you have to dig out all of your crimson shirts and dig them out of storage? Because it's not like you're going to wear a whole lot of that stuff when you're in purple up in Northwestern. Crimson maroon, kind of close enough to where you can pull off some of those non-OU shirts, right? Yeah.
It's close. It's getting closer now. I'm getting back to neutral colors, I should say. Purple was kind of the outlier. Had to get rid of a lot of that stuff, but the guys are happy now. They got some new gear. So, but yeah, it's getting closer. It's getting closer. So I will hopefully I'm in Blacksburg for a long time. So I don't have to worry about changing anytime soon.
You're talking about the long time. Talk about the short term right now. You're coming off a Challenge Series loss to Tyler Graff and the opportunity to make Final X after winning the U.S. Open, training in Blacksburg through 2020 at the very minimum. What's the Southeast Regional Training Center going to help you do, and what are your goals now that you've kind of got to wait until next freestyle season to really kind of get back at it in terms of trying to make that Olympic team?
Yeah, I'm probably in between right now, whether I'm going to still keep doing it or I'm going to just dive into the coaching role. Obviously, I love wrestling. I love competing, but I've also stepped away from it a little more now, and kind of, for me, it's not about me anymore. I would rather make it about the guys. Wouldn't say I'm announcing retirement, but as of right now, I'm probably not coming back as far as competing goes in some aspects. But yeah, I just, with the weights being different for me, there's obviously non-Olympic weights. I feel like 61 was probably my weight as far as that goes. So 57 is a far mark that I would never make, and 65 is probably a little too small for that. I could do it, and still compete, but I feel like I'd be lacking a little bit on the weight side. So yeah, I'm focused on kind of the coaching aspect of it now. I want to help out with the Southeastern training side as well, help produce some of these younger guys to get into freestyle, and because I love freestyle and I love the way it brings out, and maybe try to get an Olympian next year as far as coaching wise. That's kind of the focus of right now. I'm not saying I'm out because you never want to say that, because you never know when you're 40, 41 years old, you come back and throw some guys around like Jared Frayer did. But
I'm almost 40. I haven't thrown anybody around ever. So, present company excluded.
Yeah. So not calling it probably quits so far, but that's what I came to Virginia Tech to do, is full-time coach. My competing is second to that now. So I would say that I'm more worried about the guys and see if we can get some Olympians on either the college level or some RTC athletes that we can get into coming to Virginia Tech, and I can help those guys try to do make the Olympic team, I should say.
All right, that question took a turn that I was not expecting. Chalk that up to poor planning on my part. No,
you're good. You're good.
Talking about, you've had a distinct career when it comes to just when Cody Brewer's on the mat, people want to watch, regardless of the style. What has made wrestling so much fun for you to go out there and put on a show? And what do you think makes people drawn to your style of wrestling? Why is it wide open? Why is it unpredictable? Why is it like just nasty fun to watch? What makes you that guy?
Oh man, I wish I had a distinct answer to that. I would say I just like to score. I like to get to legs. I like to do whatever I can to put points up. I've kind of probably been knocked in the past for my defense, and my matches are 16-20 or whatever they are. And I feel like tried to make that as good as I can, but man, it's fun to score points. It's fun to rack it up on somebody quick and try to pour it on and finish matches. And even if they're coming back, that makes it even better. That's what the fans want to see. That's what people want to see. And I just kind of have built my career around scoring points. I've never been a guy to wait around. I've never been the guy to have 2-1 matches. I actually, strong facts here that I have, but I've never been an overtime match in my life. Throughout kids wrestling, high school, college, never been an overtime match, either won or lost every time I've stepped out there. So not that that's something to pride yourself on, because sometimes you want to go to overtime when you're maybe in a tight match and, you lose that match, but I've never let it go to that point to where, I got to score late or something. I'm going down swinging, and that's kind of just always been my style and my mentality. And when I try to preach to the guys now that I'm coaching, that if you let it fly and you lose, then that's different. But if you're waiting around and waiting for something to happen, that's kind of that's not the style that I had success with, and it's not what people want to see when they step out there. So.
I'm just thinking of Anthony Artelona from Penn this year. He had like 7 overtime matches this season by himself.
Never had one. Never in my career.
Now, do you count any matches you won by criteria? Because there was no overtime when we had criteria.
I don't even want to say I probably won a criteria. I don't know. I'm trying to think back, and I just don't ever remember being. Maybe I don't know. Even some of my higher scoring matches that would probably go to criteria, somebody somebody's won. I've either won or they've won. So like I said, have been probably knocked for it a little bit in the past, and maybe not a defensive wrestler, or, kind of giving up points at certain times. But the offense is where I'm at, and that's, I think, what some people want to see. So that's why I was probably more inclined to that. But
all right, Hokie Nation, he likes offense. Follow him on Twitter at Cody Brewer _133. And welcome to Hokie Nation as we wrap up this episode of Inside Virginia Tech Wrestling. Any final words, Mr. Punisher?
No, I'm excited to be a part of the family and get the right kids in and win in Virginia Tech.
Hokie fans, listen to Inside Virginia Tech Wrestling anywhere you go by subscribing on Apple Podcasts. Go to InsideVirginiaTechWrestling.com/iTunes, or you can get the exclusive Android or iOS apps by going to InsideVirginiaTechWrestling.com.
This show is part of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to MattTalkOnline.com.